Hi, and welcome to the Crime and Punishment presentation by me and Sofia Renteria. So let's start a little bit about the book. So Crime and Punishment was written by Fyodor Dostoevsky. It's under the crime genre, and it was published in 1866 in Siberia, Russia. A little bit about the author. Fyodor Dostoevsky was a Russian. He usually wrote short stories and essays, but his most popular work is considered to be Crime and Punishment because people consider it a really new step from the boundary because it focuses more on the psychological aspect of crime, and that hadn't been done before during this time, so people consider it a really groundbreaking novel due to this. He's written other books as well, but this one is considered the best. A summary about Crime and Punishment. So Crime and Punishment is about the lead character, Rodion Raskolnikov, who murders a pawnbroker and her sister. And at first we think he murders the pawnbroker for money, but then we find out that he doesn't even do anything with the possessions he stole. He doesn't sell them. So it's more of like a deeper kind of meaning to the murder. And this book deals with the theme of alienation because as he goes along, he becomes more broken down from the crime and the guilt, and he alienates himself from society, and he separates himself into this small group, which he calls the Extraordinaries. And he says that only good people can be in the Extraordinaries, people that can get away with crimes. And he refers to Napoleon Bonaparte a lot when he talks about this. Now let's break down the characters. So Rodion Raskolnikov is the protagonist. He's the one who murders the pawnbroker, and his sister Donya Raskolnikov is she goes against what he is. She's kind-hearted and sweet, so she kind of acts like a character foil for him, but not as much as Dmitri does, because Dmitri is in the exact same position as Raskolnikov. So it's kind of, the character foil is highlighted even more in him, because instead of stealing or committing a crime, Dmitri works harder instead of doing what Raskolnikov does, which is murder the lady. And Sonia, she's a prostitute, and Raskolnikov falls in love with her, and he actually admits the crime to her, and she's what convinces him to confess for the murders finally. And the setting of this play is set in St. Petersburg, which is where the author's from, as well as Siberia in Russia. So Siberia is referenced in this book as the punishment camp or the prison that Rodion would go to if he commits the crimes. So he even references, when he tells Sonia, like, hey, you're crying about me murdering people and you don't want me to leave and you want me to confess, but if I confess, I'll go to Siberia. And it's set in the mid-1860s in Russia. Another thing about the setting is that it's very run down. Like, it's not a nice city. It has prostitutes, it has drugs, it has alcohol. Like, it's not somewhere where you consider safe, or it's like not even New York. It's worse. It's almost like Hamburg, Germany in the 60s a bit. So the setting really does help with adding to the plot, because this is like crime that would happen commonly in these areas.
Okay, so for the central conflict in the Crime and Punishment is mostly from Raskolnikov's crime of murder and his struggles with his conscience over whether he should or shouldn't tell the police. This is mostly the conflict is mostly man versus self, as Raskolnikov is having problems with himself because he debates in his mind when it comes to making important life decisions, especially when he was about to commit the murder, he was having debates with himself. So the solution happens when Raskolnikov is in prison in Siberia. He's there for 9 months, and a year and a half had passed since the murders. The only reason he receives a relatively light punishment is mostly because Porfiriy Petrovich kept silent about his knowledge in Raskolnikov's murders, which is then something that pushes Raskolnikov to confess without being forced. Me mostly guessing that it was from guilt. So the main idea, Raskolnikov represents the ideals of nihilism and utilitarianism. His relation to nihilism makes him reject all meaning in life and create his own moral code, which then that's how it steps into morality, which then leads him out to carry the murder because he thinks it will benefit him and make him a better person. He doesn't value family or relationships and rejects values and emotions. So he's rejecting all of these things because he feels like it's going to make him better at the end. In addition, it shows the alienation of society, again, because he rejects values and emotion. He pushes out everyone because pride separates him from society. He sees himself as superior to all other people and so cannot relate to anyone, which is what makes him more of the lone wolf, the weird guy in the crowd. With this personal philosophy, he sees other people as tools and uses them for his own ends, which pushes him to taking more advantage of other people. Okay, for the review. We review this book 4 out of 5 stars, and that's just what other people on other book sites reviewed it as, and I completely agree with them. So would we recommend this book? Yes, we would recommend this book. It is a pretty good book. Our review is that the book is an obscure journey of self-discoverance. It's a little much darker, and it has a much deeper meaning, but you really have to read into the book. It focuses on the psychopathology of guilt. It is recommended to people who have an interest in a spiritual, deeper meaning. So people who have an interest in self-discoverance, but in the darker way. People who like a little bit of, not gore, but a twisted reading, because mostly when there's a self-discoverance book, it's positive, and this is more of a darker, negative type of self-discoverance, and it's not the most happiest ending. And although it is recommended to people who have an interest in spirituality, it's still recommended that everyone else reads it. Alright, and that is it. Thank you.